Gas exchange is the process of absorbing inert atmospheric oxygen molecules into the bloodstream and flowing carbon dioxide from the bloodstream into the atmosphere. Trachea, the airway that leads from the larynx, voice box, to the bronchi, large airways that lead to the lungs, also called windpipe.
One of the keywords that will be seen in this presentation is the tracheobronchial tree. This is composed of the trachea and the intrapulmonary airways, including the bronchi, bronchioles, and respiratory bronchioles, as we could see in the image. The definition of it is the anatomical and functional segment of the respiratory system that conducts air from the upper airways to the lung parenchyma.
Now we're going to talk about another keyword that is one of the most important organs in this process of the respiratory system, and I'm talking about the lungs, that are a pair of breathing organs located with the chest, which remove the carbon dioxide from and bring oxygen to the blood. We have a right lung, and we have another lung that is the left one.
I have the word erythropoietin. It's a substance that is naturally produced by kidneys and that stimulates the bone marrow to make red blood cells. And below we have the image that can represent. Okay, after that we have the adenocarcinoma. That is a type of cancer that starts in the glands that line the side of one of your organs. And below the text we can see an image that represents and where it's located on the.
My keyword was oxidation, which in any context means the loss of electrons during a chemical reaction by a molecule, atom, or ion. In this context, in the context of biology, specifically in the respiration system, it means when these complex organic substances lose electrons when passing through the respiration system, specifically when we inhale the air. This oxidation occurs, and then the carbon dioxide goes out, and that's how the oxidation in this context in biology is carried out.
The next keyword is bronchitis. Its meaning is inflammation of the membrane in bronchial tubes. It typically causes bronchopumps and coughing.
First thing we're gonna see are gonna be the main concepts and that you need to understand to introduce to the topic better. Those topics are two mainly and are divided into respiration and respiratory system. I'm gonna define them in simple words, starting from respiration. And as I research, respiration could be defined in the following words. It is a process in living organisms involving the production of energy, typically with the intake of oxygen and the release of carbon dioxide from the oxidation of complex organic substances. This is what happens when we inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. And that oxygen, through this process we're reviewing, we transform to carbon dioxide. I mean the oxygen we got from plants and the air, we transform it. And the next concept is respiratory system. And the respiratory system is a network of organs and tissues that help you to breathe. And naturally, it includes your airways, your lungs, and blood vessels. The muscles that power your lungs are also part of the respiratory system. Now, I'm gonna tell you the main ideas that you gotta keep in mind when talking about this topic. And those are 5 and are very important. The first one is that obviously it allows you to talk and to smell. It also brings air to body temperature and moistures it to the humidity level that your body needs. It also delivers oxygen to the cells in all over your body. It collaterally removes waste gases, including carbon dioxide from the body when you exhale, when you expose the carbon dioxide. And last, it protects your airways from harmful substances and irritants. It also serves as a protection measure of your body. It's one of all of the protection measures that your body have. And those are all of the main ideas and the concepts you gotta keep in mind before getting into the topic of the respiratory system. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, now let's talk about the structure of the respiratory system, which is anatomically divided into upper and lower airways. The first one, as it is mentioned in the presentation, consists of the nasal cavity, pharynx, and larynx. And the second one comprises the tracheobronchial tree, bronchioles, and alveoli. In addition, there is a second classification. The first corresponds to the conductive portion, and the second to the respiratory portion. On one hand, the conductive portion carries the air into the respiratory one and contributes to the conditioning of the air. On the other hand, the respiratory portion carries out a gas exchange. One thing that distinguishes one from another is the type of epithelium that covers each region, since the conductive portion is covered with a particular kind of lining called respiratory epithelium. In this, we find mucus-producing cells and ciliated cells, which the last ones that we mentioned are in charge of moving the mucus and all particles that adhere to it. But what does cilia mean? They are small hairs found in cells that function in the movement of materials across the outer surface of the cell. Their movement is coordinated in such a way that mucus from the airways moves toward the pharynx. Now, related to the respiratory epithelium, the glands produce both mucus and aqueous material.
Now we're going to talk about the organs in the respiratory system. First we have the nasal cavity. The air paths begin here, which enter through holes called nostrils. In the hall of the nostrils there are small hairs called vibrissae, sebum glands and sweat glands that constitute the first barrier of protection against the penetration of particles. The nasal cavity is folded in three parts: the upper, the middle, and the lower one. In the nasal cavity, another important function is carried: the olfaction. The roof of the cavity and the turbinates has a special epithelium called olfactory epithelium, in which is specialized of neurons in the perception on others. Now, the nasopharynx is the upper part of the throat behind the nose. It is a part of the pharynx which constitutes in three separate segments: the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the hypopharynx. The pharynx is the passage leading from the mouth and nose to the esophagus and larynx. The pharynx conducts the air from the trachea or windpipe during respiration. Now, the larynx. When the air passes through the larynx, these muscles contract, modifying the opening of the larynx and regulating the emission of sounds with different tones by causing the vibration of true vocal cords. The mucosa of the larynx projects and forms two pairs of protruding folds constituting of the vocal cords, which participate in phonation. The parts of the larynx are epiglottis, ventricular fold, glottis, and vocal fold. Now we're going to talk about the trachea. The trachea in vertebrates and invertebrates is a tube or system that carries air. The trachea is constituted by the larynx, and it is made up by a tube of 16 to 20 rings of hyaline cartilage that are in the form of letter C. It is free toward a portion and joined by smooth muscles. When the tissue compresses and relaxes, regulates the amount of air that enters into the lungs. Bronchi. The trachea branches divide into two that enter into the lung. with they divide themselves in 3 in the right lung and 2 in the left one, that regulate the different lobes. While the bronchi primarily is a pathway of air, they have another functions, and they have a role in immune functions. A number of different conditions can affect the bronchi, including bronchitis, asthma, chronic obstruction of pulmonary diseases or COPD, and lung cancer.
Now we're going to talk about two important organs of the respiratory system. The first one are the bronchioles, that are air passage inside the lungs that branch off like little limbs from bronchi. The bronchioles deliver air to tiny sacs called alveoli that we are going to see in the next slide, where oxygen and carbon dioxide are extracted. And now we're going to see the second organ, that is the pleura. The pleura includes two thin layers of tissues that protect and cushion the lungs. The first one is the inner layer, that is the visceral pleura, that wraps around the lungs and is stuck so tightly to the lung that it cannot be peeled off. And the other one is the outer layer, that is the parietal pleura, that lines the inside of the chest wall. Now we're going to talk about other two organs that are part of the respiratory systems, that are the alveoli, that are tiny air sacs in your lungs that take up the oxygen that you breathe in and keep your body going. When you breathe in, the alveoli expand to take in oxygen, and when you breathe out, the alveoli shrink to expel carbon dioxide. And the other organ is the diaphragm, that is a thin skeletal muscle that sits at the base of the chest and separates the abdomen from the chest. It contracts and flattens when you inhale. This creates a vacuum effect that pulls air into the lungs, and it also has some non-respiratory function as well. And finally, we have one of the most important organs of this process and of the respiratory system, that is the lungs. The lungs' main role is to bring in air from the atmosphere and pass oxygen into the bloodstream. From there, it circulates to the rest of the body. The lungs are like bellows. As they expand, air is sucked in for oxygen, and as they compress, they exchange carbon dioxide waste and push it back out during the exhalation.
Bronchitis is an inflammation of the linings of your bronchial tubes, which carry air to and from your lungs. People who have bronchitis often have tiny mucus, which can be discolored. Bronchitis may be either acute or chronic. After developing from a cold or other respiratory infection, acute bronchitis is very common. Chronic bronchitis, a more serious condition, is a constant irritation or inflammation of the lining of the bronchial tubes, often due to smoking. Acute bronchitis, also called a chest cold, usually improves within a week to 10 days without lasting effects, although the cold may linger for weeks. However, if you have repeated bouts of bronchitis, you may have chronic bronchitis, which requires medical attention. Chronic bronchitis is one of the conditions included in chronic obstructive problems disease. Acute bronchitis is usually caused by viruses, and the most common cause of chronic bronchitis is cigarette smoking, air pollution and dust or toxic gases in the environment or workplace. Also can contribute to the condition. For either acute bronchitis or chronic bronchitis, signs and symptoms may include the cough, the production of mucus, which can be clear, white, yellowish, gray, or green color. Probably it may include treated with blood, fatigue, shortness of breath, slight fever and chills, chest discomfort, and factors that increase your risk of bronchitis include cigarette smoke. The people who smoke or who live with a smoker are the higher with risk of both acute bronchitis and chronic bronchitis. Low resistance is may result from another acute illness, such as a cold, or from a chronic condition that compromises your immune system. The other adults, infants, and young children have greater vulnerability to infection. Exposure to irritants. On the job, your risk of developing bronchitis is greater if you work around certain lung irritants, such as grains or textiles, or are exposed to chemical fumes. Or the gastric reflux, repeated bouts of severe heartburn can be irritate your throat and make you more prone to developing bronchitis. Asthma is a condition in which your airways narrow and swell and may produce extremities. This can make breathing difficult and require coughing, whistling sound when you breathe out, and shortness of breath. For some people, asthma is a minor nuisance. For others, it can be a major problem and interference with the activities and may lead to life-threatening asthma attack. Asthma can be cured, but its symptoms can be controlled because asthma often changes over time. It's important that you work with your doctor to track your signs and symptoms and adjust your treatment as needed. It isn't clear why some people get asthma and others don't, but it's probably due to a combination of environmental and genetic factors. Asthma signs and symptoms include shortness of breath, chest, sinus or pain, wheezing when exhaling, which is a common sign of asthma in children, cruel sleeping caused by shortness or breath, coughing or wheezing, coughing or wheezing attacks that are worsened by a respiration virus such as a cold or the flu. A number of factors are used to increase your chance of developing asthma. They include having a blood relative with asthma, such as a parent or a sibling, and having another allergy condition, such as atopic dermatitis, being overweight, being a smoker, exposure to second-hand smoke, exposure to dust, fumes, or other types of pollution, exposure to occupational hazards such as chemical used in farming, hair raising, and manufacturing. Tuberculosis is a potentially serious infection disease that mainly affects the lungs. The bacteria that cause tuberculosis are spread from one person to another through tiny droplets released into the air via coughs and sneezes. Many kinds of tuberculosis, for example, plasma is used to treat the disease. People with active tuberculosis must take several types of medication for many months to eradicate infections and prevent the development of antibiotic resistance. Symptoms are coughing that lasts 3 or more weeks, coughing of blood and chest pain or pain with breathing or coughing, intentional weight loss, fatigue, fever, loss of appetite, among others like night sweats or chills. The risk factors are diabetes mellitus, severe kidney disease, low body weight, organ transplants, head and neck cancer, among others.
Lung cancer is a disease related to smoking, air pollution, occupation, and gender. It is one of the diseases with the highest mortality rate. Between the symptoms, we have severe cough, clogging for blood, tiredness, chest infections, and pain when breathing. And the risk factors, we have smoke and constant air pollution. Emphysema is a condition that occurs when the alveolar walls break, which limits the surface and produce an adequate gas exchange. Between the symptoms, we have frequent coughing, mucus, shortness of breath, critical sound when breathe, and tightness in chest. Further risk factors are tobacco smoke, air pollution, and chemical fumes and dusts.